Welcome to Give It a Nudge. This week we have Amal from Equalution on the show. I've known Amal a little while. We are both members at Club of United Business, which is how we met. And I'm pretty excited for her to tell the story because we have a lot of tech founders come on, and I think to me it's a story that's more interesting to me because I like the subject matter. But I think a lot of our audience like to see non-tech founders more often than not. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here. So why don't you do the introduction on yourself and the business in your own words?
Yeah, it's always a tough question to ask when someone goes, "Who are you?" Like, who's Amal? Who's Amal? So. Amal, me,
Yep.
Co-founder and CEO of Equalution.
Yep.
Have been doing that for about 6.5 years
Is that
now.
that long already? Gosh.
Yeah, feels like a lifetime, but it doesn't feel long enough. It's crazy. It's
That's
like
a
this
good
weird
answer.
feeling.
I like
yeah.
that answer.
It's 6.5 years currently. It sparked from my own passion in health and wellness and through my own 30-kilo transformation, which I'm sure you're going to ask questions about throughout this podcast. And then who's Amal outside of work? I'm chaotic and calm at the same time. I am nowhere near normal in any means, and I am probably the biggest introvert that you'll ever meet, although my social media does not say that whatsoever.
So that's an interesting, it doesn't say that. Are you an extrovert, introvert, which I found out I am. I found this out the other day, actually. Do you think that's what you are?
I'm an extrovert when I need to turn it on. So of preference, introvert, would much love to stay at home in my own comfort, safe space. But when I'm around people, I'll switch it on quite well. A lot of people actually don't know I'm an introvert. So when I do tell them, they're like, wow, I would have never guessed. And when I do personality tests, it's always an introvert, but can switch it on quite well.
So that's kind
extrovert,
of,
yeah.
That's an extrovert, introvert.
Yeah.
That's what it
really?
is.
Is that what it is?
It's the ability to, I think you get introverts who can go into social situations and be fine, but then you get introverts who, when they go in situations, turn it really on.
Yeah.
And that's an extrovert, introvert. And then everyone just
Okay.
assumes they're like that all the time, and they assume they want to be out all the time, and they assume they're this huge social networking. But actually, I'm like you, I'd much rather just be at home.
Yeah, and it takes a lot for me to actually, I guess, prep myself into going. So I'll be like, I'm nervous, I have to talk to people. I get really anxious about it, and then I'm there, and then I'll put it on really well, and then I'll go home and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so glad to be home right now.
Do you give a lot of talks?
I do a fair few podcasts. Can I be honest with you? Yes and no. I do try and get involved because I think it's a really cool message what Equalution is doing in the world, and just trying to educate other females or motivate other females into getting into the tech space. But no, I'm a huge homebody. Even going to networking events, and I think that's probably one of my biggest regrets. Not that I have a regret, but something that I wish I had done more throughout my journey was network more.
Yep. The reason I asked that is I've been doing a lot more public speaking the last couple of years, and I feel horrific all day and sick, and I can't stand. Once I'm started, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Wherever the venue is, even if it's an hour and a half away, I'll walk there because it's the only way I can keep myself calm.
Really?
It's awful.
What if it's in Wollongong?
I'd probably stay somewhere nearer. So I've never spoken in Wollongong, so maybe we should, if anyone else there wants to put me in Wollongong, and then we can film it, we can record the whole thing.
It's a 20-hour walk, and you're come sweating.
You're very late. But yeah, I can't stand it. But let's go back to your business. So tell us about it. How would you describe the business?
Yeah, so we're a health tech company.
Yep.
We facilitate sustainable and balanced nutrition in a personalized manner. So we are the most personalized solution in the market when it comes to being in our space, so the health tech space. And essentially, we do not demonize any food groups. We provide nutrition that's tailored to you, that allows you to eat the food that you love. So you can have pizza and pasta and ice cream and chocolate and still achieve your health goals, essentially. So for us, it's all about lasting results and building sustainable habits that you can maintain for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's I think it's, for me, I love nutrition, and that's quite a new thing. Probably in the last, maybe 8 to 10 years, I've really gotten focused on nutrition, and there's so much about it that
so much.
You just don't know, and all these stupid things that you do that you just didn't know because 10 years ago the information wasn't out there. Yep. Yours is the most personalized, and I think that's probably one of the most interesting things. But let's go back a bit and sort of talk about you. Where did this come from, and what were you doing before you started this business? What was your career in?
Yeah, so prior to actually starting Equalution, I was working at Google.
Yep.
I was in the marketing department for consumer retail. So, you know, like the Chromecast, Chromebooks, and everything that you see in like JB Hi-Fi and all of those stores. So
Remember those Chromebooks?
Yeah, I actually used to use one.
I think I did. They were cheap as well.
Yeah, they were like $300 or something, like ridiculously cheap. So was working there and had a passion for just business in general. So I was studying a Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in marketing and management.
Yep.
And then I deferred my degree to take on my business full time. So at the time, was working at Google full time, studying full time, and then did Equalution as like a passion project side hobby. And then something had to give. So it was my degree, 3 subjects to go. Parents weren't impressed. They were like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm going to start this business. So it's either that or my job."
Do you still have to pay a debt on it if you haven't finished it?
I was one of the lucky ones where my parents paid for my education.
So they would be really unimpressed.
Yeah, and I failed economics twice. So the third time I felt so bad because they had to pay for that same subject 3 times.
You should say, I'm passing economics here, you're the one paying for it. In the real life world, I am killing it economically.
And it's not cheap. Sydney University is not cheap.
It's not cheap. It's beautiful, but it's not cheap.
I felt bad. It was like always sitting on my mind, like I cannot fail a subject because mum and dad are paying for it.
That's a good motivator.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you quit that, so you carried on doing your job and you carried on the business.
Yes.
And what made you want to start your own business?
Yeah, so I think I always had a knack of like just being really independent in everything that I did. I had a really good work ethic, was always a hard worker. So wherever I was, whether it was at Google or my first job at Macca's, I was always progressing quite quickly. And that's because I gave my job everything. I just loved working. Working just felt so natural.
That's cool.
And so how the business actually came about was just through my own personal experience. So growing up, I was struggled with my weight my entire life, so my entire childhood. Coming from a Lebanese background, food is at the core of everything that we do. Every celebration, was never short of amazing food. So I was very lucky growing up, but was unfortunately carrying too many kilos. And I actually didn't know that I was overweight until after the fact. So when I look back at that time, I never looked at myself in the mirror and thought, "Oh, you're overweight," or "You're unhappy,"
Just
or
crept
whatever.
up on you.
Just crept up on me. And then it wasn't until I went to the GP at 16 and had a health check that I faced a very confronting situation where the doctor told me I was borderline diabetic. And it was at that point that I had to make a choice. It was either potentially take medication for the rest of my life or make a change.
Yep.
And that's where the journey started. Became very obsessed with everything to do with health and wellness and weight loss. Tried every fad diet you could possibly think of. Keto, shake diets, cutting carbs.
Fad diet is the word exactly.
Fad diet, yeah. Was like the queen of fad diets. And the thing is, right, it's easy to lose weight, but it's even harder to maintain it. And that's what fad diets do, right?
Yep.
They give you this approach that you can't sustain, and then you achieve your results. You go back to your normal nutrition or whatever you normally eat, and then you put on twice as much. And so I was so desperately looking for a solution that would allow me to enjoy life in the process, but something I could sustain for the rest of my life and maintain my results. So my 30 kilo weight loss, I wouldn't say is my biggest achievement. I would say maintaining it for so many years has been.
30 kilos is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
And you're not tall.
No, thanks for letting everyone know. They can't tell I look tall in the video.
I said you weren't tall, that was all. I did not say anything else.
I'm very short.
No, I did not say that. I said you're not tall. They're two very different things. But it's a lot of weight. And I think, that what I've seen with people whose weight's go up and down is, like you said, they try these things, they lose weight, and then they kind of go back to, they go, "Oh, I've lost my weight, I'll go back to the way I was living before," and it comes back. And then they believe that they're made to be that type, right? That's what they believe. They go, "No, this is just how I am. This is how I'm meant to be," which, as you know, is not true.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued by, how did you do that? How did you research and how did you find out? And because there's so much information out there on the internet, and there's a zillion fad diets, and they're the ones buying all the top of Google, right? So they're the ones you go to first.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you cut through all that to get to this business? And then how have you managed to educate and communicate that out?
Yeah, so throughout my journey, I became really competitive and I started doing something called fitness modeling, where you wear a bikini, you get on stage and you get judged for your aesthetics.
Very introverted.
Yeah, very, very introverted, the complete opposite. And so that is all about how you look. So your physical appearance is so important because you get judged on it. And so my first show, I did clean eating. So back in like 2014, 2015, and did not eat anything outside of my 7 staple ingredients that I would have in my diet, which was like chicken, broccoli, sweet potato, oats, protein powder, like nothing, no cheat meals, nothing, didn't even dine out. And then I got on stage and I looked so average, but I had worked so hard. And that's what a lot of people feel, is that they're like, well, I exercise every day and I eat clean and I don't do this. Why do I not look the way that I want to look? Like, why am I not achieving those results? Stepped off the stage and just questioned the process. Something wasn't right. And so then started to do a little bit of research, and there was this guy who was prepping athletes, and he would give athletes cereal and ice cream. And I was like, how is that even a thing? I haven't eaten birthday cake for the last 4 years. I haven't eaten bread. I don't even know what a sandwich tastes like anymore. Like, that's how much of a clean eater I was. It was crazy, like absolute craziness. Like, I would look at different oils and I would get angry at my mum for using like a certain oil over another oil when really they're the same calories. It was like olive oil and like flaxseed oil. And I'm like, Mum, you need to use a flaxseed oil because that's what my diet says. But they're the same calories. And so questioned the process, found this guy. His athletes looked amazing. And I remember sitting down with him and he was going to help me with my next show. And he put me on like nearly 2,000 calories, which was significant. Like,
horrific from your life.
Crazy. Like, people thought that it was like 1,200 calories is the magic number. And I sat there and I had a mini panic attack. And I'm like, I'm not going to follow what you're telling me to eat. You're trying to jeopardize my results. And he's like, just give me a week. What do I have to lose? I was deflated. I was desperate. I was,
nothing.
you know, what is a week? So I started following this plan, and it had ice cream and,
you're probably quite excited by this plan as well.
But scared at the same time, because when you go through this transition and you give up all these foods for such a long time, you're programmed to think that they're bad for you, and you think that as soon as I eat bread or carbs, I'm going to put on weight. And so it was like I was putting like my full trust in this person. Anyway, so I did the week and felt good, energy, mood, sleep, like even just my results. Like, I was losing weight at that amount, and I was like, there's a science behind this. I want to learn more. So I spent time researching about the whole concept of what he was doing, which was calories in versus calories out. And now when you look at all of these fad diets, what they essentially do when you actually like look into them properly is they remove an entire macronutrient. So you do keto, you remove an entire macronutrient. You do low carbs, you remove an entire macronutrient. You do a shake diet, you're removing just calories. It's just calories. You're removing calories. That's what it is. And so I just thought, well, why wouldn't you just remove calories in a sustainable, balanced, non-aggressive way that you can maintain? And then tested it on myself, ate ice cream every single night for 16 weeks. Put it up on Instagram. People thought I was crazy. This was 2015. People were like, you were crazy. How could you preach this?
People wouldn't have believed it. They would have reckoned you were faking it.
Yeah, wouldn't believe it. And then stepped on stage at 9% body fat. And it was at that moment that I thought, I need to share this with the world. And I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that we make our mark.
Wow. That's crazy. And so now people go on. Tell me how the platform works.
Yeah, so now we weren't always like this. We were a service-based company. Everything was done manually when we first started. So we would write every meal plan from scratch, send it through as a PDF on WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger.
Goodness.
Yeah, it was operationally like inefficient, like so timely. It was hard to manage. All of our clients were on a Google sheet. If you deleted one person's name, that client's gone forever. You'd never find that person again. That person will never get a meal plan from us again. So it just it got to a point where it was just growing at such a fast pace that we were forced to build the technology that we have today. So it was never was a technology company to begin with.
Become that.
But what we did back then, which we didn't realize we were doing, was establishing product market fit. And it was once we validated it, so we saw the increase in demand, that we then started investing in the product, which is our technology today. And so how the platform works, it's come a long way since 2016 when we first founded it. you sign up and you get access to our mobile app, which is essentially the tool to support everything to do with education around nutrition, whatever your goal is. So whether it's weight loss, weight maintenance, healthy recipes, postpartum, whatever it is, we cater to all goals. And then we tailor your nutrition, so your personalized meal plan, to your goal and your taste preferences and your lifestyle. So then you fill out this onboarding questionnaire that collects all this data for us. And then on a weekly basis, we give you a personalized meal plan that we know you'll enjoy. You check in weekly, we then give you a new one, we personalize it even more, and then you've got your tools to be able to just track your nutrition, guides to learn more, food diary tracker, water tracker, grocery tracker, and so on. Everything to do with nutrition.
And it's been wildly successful.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Look at the smile.
Yeah, like it's always hard to be like, yeah, like as a founder.
But it has.
You're like,
I mean, it has. There's no question. And so I guess my question now is, where are you going from here? What's in your mind for the future? Because you don't look like someone who's going to sit on the laurels.
Yeah. So for us, when we first started the business, the coaching element was such a big part. So you would have an assigned coach, a nutritionist, or a dietitian that would support you on your journey. But what we started to realize was that it became very time frame orientated because it was such a high price. It was premium.
It would be.
And so to have that person, although it was done through a mobile app, was a high cost for a consumer. And so what we wanted to do was bring out an offer or a subscription that would allow people to sustain it long term. So it was the tool ongoingly, wherever you are in your life cycle, right? And so we built the technology to try and replace that coaching experience through education and guides in our community. And we most recently launched that mid-May. So now we went from $250 a month to now offering a $50 a month subscription.
And how's that gone?
Reach the
really
masses.
Well?
Oh, amazing. It's just completely taken off. And it's refreshing because when you spend so many years and millions of dollars building that technology, you don't see the return immediately when you're building. It's not until you launch. And so you're risking a lot of it. We did a lot of validating and product market fit and research, like so much to make sure it was the right move for the company. And then you launch and then you start to see how people take to it. And it's a really great feeling. But it has now allowed us to look at the business in a very different lens, in the sense that we can now take to the international market because it's a scalable model. It's accessible. It allows us to expand our business verticals. Like there's just so much more that we can do now that we have this fully automated, scalable model as an offering for the business.
Do you have a country in mind?
A few. So for us, we need to ensure that culturally it's similar to Australia, because you can't just give everyone poached eggs, sourdough and ketchup for breakfast. It's not a thing in every country, even though it's delicious. So for us, it would be moving into the countries that have similar eating behaviours and recipes to ours, as it's an easier transition. So you're looking at like Singapore, New Zealand, which are smaller markets, the UK, for example, Canada, before we then go to the Middle East and Asia and the US.
And I mean, look, Singapore and New Zealand are great little test beds.
Yeah, they are.
We took our business into them first, and they're really easy markets to go into. Because they're so small, you get the feedback super quick,
exactly.
right? And you get a feel of if it's going to work or not. That's awesome. And I guess in all those, you've kind of not created this business out of accident, but it's a business that became because of your own personal need, and you've turned it into a lifestyle, and you've turned it into your own brand, and you are where you are, and now you're about to go international. That's always great, but what's been the hardest thing? Like there would have been there's always some awful parts in growing a business. And I always like to ask that question, because sometimes I think people watch these shows and they go, oh my God, this is so good. I just need to start a business. It's easy. And it's not easy. It's anything but easy. What do you think's been the thing that probably doesn't have to be the hardest thing that you did, but maybe the thing that surprised you the most in terms of building a business?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I really think it depends on the stage that I was at in the business, because I think that when I look back on my journey, there are different things that were hard at different times. And so there's not one thing that I've been like, oh, that was so hard. There's always something that's hard.
Well, you learn it and then it becomes easy, right?
Yeah, and that becomes easy, and then the next thing becomes hard.
What about surprises? What about things you're like, oh my God, I never saw that coming? There's always
can I be honest with you? Like, I think that if I was to answer this maybe a couple of months ago, it would have been building technology, because that was a challenge being a non-technical founder. You don't know, like it's a
complex.
different language.
Oh, literally.
It's different language. You're dealing with different types of people.
Yep.
And unless you are so certain on your vision and what the product should be like, it can go in different directions and it can surprise you. So that was challenging. But right now, I would have to say that raising capital.
Yeah, good. That's a good. And it is. It's
Yeah, it is. It
awful.
is hard. It is, particularly in this economic state.
Right now, very hard.
Now is hard. So we're doing our first fundraising round, first round, and it is just like, because we've never, as a company, we're 100% bootstrapped, and we've never taken on debt or any external funding. Going into like that whole getting external capital is it's a new world.
And that's to go international, right? That's the idea.
Yes. And just because for the last 2 years we've spent time focusing on building the product is now built, and the next few years are based on distribution. How do we actually get this to the masses?
Yep.
And so that's what the injection of capital is. It just allows us to progress a lot quicker. We can do it on our own, but when you have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million more, you can do what you plan to do in 2 years in 6 months.
Absolutely, and that's the purpose of fundraising.
And I started this business not because I wanted to make a mark, in the Australian digital space on Instagram and TikTok and, amongst our age group. But it was really to make a mark globally on what proper nutrition is.
Yep.
And so in order to get there, that additional funding is the support that we need to get there a lot quicker. And going into this phase of the business, oh my God, I'm choked because it's challenging.
Excited.
It's
exciting.
challenging. It's tough. It's tough.
So let's say we have a lot of VCs, we have a lot of investors who watch this show. If they're watching this show, tell me in your own words, in a nice, short, succinct sentence, which is probably the hardest thing to do, why would someone invest in you right now?
Yeah, I think because what we offer is very different in the market. So instantly when you think of Equalution, you're like, oh, just another weight loss company that's trying to, kill what the fad diet's doing, or another fad that exists. But for us, it's all about that behaviour change and embedding better habits in someone's day-to-day routine. So we're not actually a weight loss company. We started off as a weight loss company, but we focus on overall good health through nutrition. And so for us, it's not a matter of someone coming on because they just want to lose weight for their wedding. It's someone comes on because they just want to be educated on proper nutrition. And we then provide them with the tools to be able to do so. So it's not, oh, I'm just doing this to lose weight. I'm doing this because I want to take the thought process out of what's for dinner. What can I eat for me and my family that's, healthy or delicious or in line with my goals? And so for us, we have spent the last 2 years building this new scalable model. It has allowed us to increase our margins significantly, which I know every investor wants to hear.
They do.
And we've managed to decrease our CAC by 60% in just 2 months alone since launching it. So grown significantly.
Pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? And this is just the start. This is with very minimal marketing spend towards it. This is it's still brand new. We're still educating the market about it. And so I think there's ample opportunity. And when it comes to this industry, it's educating on proper nutrition that is sustainable and not harmful. It's not contributing to the toxic nature of the weight loss industry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Is it?
Yeah, you've been practicing that. You're nailing that.
Well, I'm pitching currently. So.
I know. Well, I was going to say, you must have done it 10 times. Look,
more
thank
than
you.
10.
Thank you so much for coming on.
We're done.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was quick.
No, because 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
It felt like 2 minutes.
People.
That was great.
It's actually half an hour. People lose interest.
Yeah, that's true. I actually did say that.
Yeah, you might have
outside.
listened to one earlier, and you might have been, I don't know, maybe you lost interest in what Belinda was saying when you were listening to.
Oh no, I was on my walk and I was so intrigued. When she was like, "Am I allowed to say?" I'm like, "Say what? I want to know now."
Well, yeah. See, and now everyone's going to go, "Well, what are you?" But no, yeah, that's about the right amount of time. It's the right amount of time. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. That was great.
Thanks for coming on the show today, and we'll see you next week.